Hey, welcome back, everyone. This is Jake Forsyth, your host for Pints with Ayre. This is our latest installment for February the 3rd, February 3rd. And I've got my partner, Ariel Brown here, Airhead-in-Chief, and a very special guest, a good friend of mine, Dave Rusan, very talented guitar luthier and just a music aficionado from the Minneapolis music scene. So thank you for joining us, Dave. I really am so happy to have you on here.
Yeah, I appreciate that you wanted to be on, and thank you.
Yeah, well, you've got such a interesting story to tell, and I know there's still plenty of story to tell. You're a very busy man these days with what you're working on, but yeah, you've got so much cool kind of music history that you've provided so many people, and I don't think that they are really aware of that. So I'm very excited to talk about that. Now this is Pints with Ayre, so we do have some pints to talk about, and I think I'm going to let Ariel take the reins on what we're drinking, and actually, since you're our guest, why don't you let us know what you're drinking?
Well, it says bubbly on the can, and it's lime, and that's about it. Nothing that'll impair my judgment in any way.
Oh yeah. Okay, right on.
Yeah, so we're actually revisiting one of the early breweries we did on the show. So we're back at Ayre Brewing. This is a Little Rascal this time. It's a Belgian white session ale, and it's one of my favorite breweries. My favorite styles of beer. It's really easy, light, delicious. It's easy to drink a little too much. But yeah, and yeah, that's just what was in the fridge today. I forgot to go hunt something new down, so that's what we're left with today.
I love it. It's lemony and zesty, and to kind of follow with Dave, I am double fisting, and I have my non-alcoholic brew as well that is going to keep me going the rest of the day. It's this lemon elation, lemon flavored yerba mate tea, and oh man, if you want to get some stuff done, that's the can.
That right sounds there. Good. Yeah, that sounds very good. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. All right, well, so yeah, that's what we're drinking, but I guess let's talk a little bit more about you, Mr. Dave. Why don't you, I'd like to know kind of what your early beginnings were like, kind of first getting interested into music, and like what gravitated you to guitar. I know you're a guitar player as well, but just like what got you excited about music and started you kind of down that path of working on guitars and playing music?
Well, I always loved music. My mom said that when she would take me for a walk when I was 2 in the winter, I wouldn't even take my coat off when I got home. I'd want to get out my record player and play my Donald Duck record player and play some music. I just loved the sound, just the sound of people making music, and also the machines that made it. You know, Steve, what's his name? The guy has a YouTube channel. He talks about that.
Gutenberg, probably.
Yeah, his dad had a jukebox, and he just loved the machine and the way it smelled. You know, there was that smell of the kind of musty smell of the electronics, and I loved them both, you know. And then I started to listen to rock and roll, you know, and I saw guitars, you know, and I saw them in a store, and I said, I got to have one, you know. And at first I wanted drums, and I was in a catechism contest and I lost. So no drums for me. And then I kept going, and the Beatles come along, and I thought, oh, God, I could just see myself playing for the girls at school, you know, and so I had to get the guitar. But I love music, and I could hear songs in my head, you know, I could write stuff, you know, little things in my head. So it wasn't like I just got the guitar. It was like I had music that wanted to come out. So I had to get the guitar to make that happen, you know, which to me is essential. You have to have a musical mind and some sensitivity. And then the instrument is basically a tool to get that out. It's not an end to itself. And I had that feeling right away, you know. So then they got me the first guitar was a rental. It was so bad, hard to play, that when people smiled when they were playing on TV, I asked my mom, how can they smile when they're in pain? And then they decided that they better get me a better one. So they did, you know, and it kept going. And then like some people, they buy a car just to drive to church or the grocery store. And other people, they want to see what's under the hood. And I was like that with the guitars. As soon as I got one, I thought, what's under that plate? You know, how does this work? And I started taking them apart, you know, sometimes with bad consequences, but I just kept going, you know. I just had to see what was under there, you know, and it was like I was destined to do this, and I just had to kind of, it had to come to I had to admit it and just go for it, you know, but it was so natural to play and to want to work on it. It was, you know, it seemed like it was meant to be, you know.
Very cool. So yeah, it sounds like you started jumping right into kind of learning how to work on them soon after just getting exposed and picking up your first guitar then, huh?
Well, it happened after a certain incident.
Oh.
There was no good guitar repairman in St. Cloud where I lived, which I don't know if you know, that's a medium-sized city north of Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. My dad drove me down to Minneapolis, and there wasn't any dedicated guitar. There was a violin guy that worked on them. And all I had to have was a hole made for a strap button to put on my Gibson thin line. And I brought the guitar in and I gave it to these two old guys. At least they look old to me then. And, you know, and I waited and I thought, boy, you know, why is this taking so long? And the other guy came over and they both were looking at it. And they come over and said, well, we had a little accident. A chunk of wood come out when we were drilling your guitar. But I remember thinking, I bet I could have drilled a hole. And that's how it started, you know. And then they did some other stuff that was bad. And I thought, you know, I'm just going to get in there. There were no instruction books. There was no videos, or there were no videos of any kind. And I just, by looking, and I had a mentor, one guy that was a mentor, but a lot of it was just observing and trying to see how I could do. And when I could do my own, I did my friends' guitars, and it just kept growing. I could do more stuff, and I did more people's stuff, and it just kept moving along, you know. Like it was inevitable, really, you know.
Yeah. And so you were doing that for a little bit. And when did you find yourself at a little music store called, how do I say it? Newt Coupe?
Yeah, Newt Coupe, yeah. Well, I moved from St. Cloud to Minneapolis for more opportunities to play with bands, you know. St. Cloud had about 40,000 people, and I kind of played with them all. Minneapolis is big, you know, and, you know, it's a whole different thing. And almost right away, I met the owners of the store. It was a tiny, tiny little place at that time. And one of the owners thought he could do guitar repair until a certain incident happened. Did you ever hear of Robin Trower?
I've heard the name.
Yeah, he was huge in the 70s. Like, he filled the biggest stadiums, you know, kind of like Stevie Ray Vaughan would, you know, or like he was like the version of Joe Bonamassa of the 70s almost, you know. Sure. And he came into the store, and one of the owners of the store did something that just almost ruined Robin's guitar, and he stormed out of there. And I came in about 2 days later, and they told me, and they were just felt terrible, you know. And I said, well, how about if I set up a shop in the basement? I think I can do better than you. And it started, and you know, and I kept getting more tools. Although it was hard to get good luthier tools, there weren't very many. But I built the business, and it was a popular store. It was the only store in town that was owned by people your own age. All the other stores, it was like going to see your uncle, because they'd all started back in the big band era, you know. So everybody hung out there. and it was fun, and then I just kept getting better at it, through mostly just by doing it, all day.
Yeah. So you were there at the music store, set up camp there, and then you moved away for a little bit, right? You went overseas.
Yeah, one of the owners of the store met a guy at the NAMM show. Do you know what the NAMM show is? It's the musical instrument, conventions. And the guy was from London. He had a store there. And I always wanted to go to Europe because my hobby is European, especially Greco-Roman history. That's my hobby. And he arranged for me to go and work so I could stay there for a while, And so I went to London, and it turned out everything worked out just like it should have. I could have been some nobody, some little place. It was small, but it was where all the rock stars went to, from Pete Townsend, Gary Moore. I did work for the Stones, the Who, everybody. I didn't meet them all, but I met some, and it was great, and they wanted me to stay and live there, for, become a citizen. And I was going to, but then I came back to get my affairs in order. And I thought, boy, I think this is my home. It was fun, but I don't think I can live there forever, So I went back to New Capay, and the next day Prince walked in to order his cloud guitar.
Wow.
So that all worked out. It makes you think about all the ways something might not have happened if it all hadn't lined up just right,
Yeah. So when you were, before you had moved away, you had come into contact with Prince, hadn't you? When would he come into the store when he was pretty young?
Yeah, he was in high school. He had the big afro. He'd come in with his friends. We knew he was good. One day he put a guitar on, and he just hammered on with his left hand. You can play with one hand. And he played a harmony line on the keyboard with the other hand, the right hand. And we knew he was a big deal, but you didn't see him play much. The north side of Minneapolis was kind of like the south side of Chicago. That's where all the black bands were that didn't play the mainstream clubs. There were a lot of them. They played little things, Once Jimmy Jam from the Time, you know who he is?
That's one I don't know.
Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, they went on to become huge producers. They had a band called The Time, and it was one of the bands like Prince's. And they called me up. They said, we need a guitar player. And I said, well, where do you play? And I thought they'd reel off a list of clubs. They said, well, once in a while we rent out a hall. And I remember thinking, well, that don't sound so hot. So it was tough for them. And so Prince was not somebody that you saw in the same scene as the mainstream rock bands, but we knew he was real good. We knew he was really, it was kind of special, but we didn't know so much. We didn't know if he could write. We didn't know, hadn't seen him on stage, all the other aspects of him,
Yeah. So you see him as a kid, and you move away and you work on some rock star guitars, and all this time you're doing repairs and setups and stuff, right? Is that
Yeah.
And so
major, minor repairs. Yeah.
Major,
and
minor.
Prince, by the time I came back, because I was at the store a few years before I left, he already had 3 albums out. So he was becoming, he was just kind of a contender. He was in there, but it wasn't anything like it would be later, but he was somebody that sold records, So.
Oh yeah. What an honor to work with him, I would imagine. But so you built a guitar for Prince upon his request after you got back. And how many guitars had you built before then?
0. I never built a guitar. I just fixed them, and it's quite different. It'd be like a home repairman had to go build a house. It's quite different. Much more woodworking, planning, design work. Just things starting with just wooden parts, but I could have refused, but sometimes, you just gotta give it a shot. It's amazing what you can do under pressure sometimes. Most people, I don't think they ever reach their potential because nobody ever tries to get them to do things that they probably can't do, or don't think they can do. My mother once said, I said, you love painting, why don't you try painting? She said, oh, I can't paint. She didn't know that. She never tried. So I thought, what can they, if I can't do it, they can't kill me. Prince will play a white Stratocaster. That'll be the end of it. And I made a plan. I thought, well, since I've never done this, I'm going to have a step-by-step approach, so I'm not overwhelmed. Where I analyzed it, drew plans, collected the parts. I made a program, a step-by-step thing, kind of like if you went to school, a lesson program, and then just started doing it.
It's great.
Yeah, that's super cool. So did they give you much parameters to work with, or did they just say, we want you to build us a guitar?
Well, they had a bass that had some of those features. It had the horn, and it had been made by some guy in New York City. He said, use this as a starting point. He said it had to be white. It had to have gold parts. It had to have the brand EMG pickups. It had to have spades on the fingerboard. And that was it. And usually when you make a custom guitar, you sit down with the guy and you talk about the neck size, the size of the frets, all kinds of stuff. Like an architect, if you're going to have him build a house, how are the rooms going to be, and there was none of that. The movie was in production. He was already starting to shoot scenes. He was supposed to have somebody else make the guitar, and they had a falling out, so they were way behind on having it made, so, and I had to do it real quick. It had to be done, I think, in about a month, as I remember, so I did it all the time, every day, I think 6 days a week, just to do it. And it was exhilarating, I felt excited and alive by the challenge of it. It was fun,
I know that feeling. I know Ariel and I are feeling the adrenaline every day of all the stuff we're putting together and sending out the door. I mean, it's a lot of work, but it feels good when you're progressing and making some big stuff happen.
I think a good life is not necessarily an easy life. It's one where things happen, you make things happen, and you have commitment, and you don't just go on vacations every day. You got something better, so you have things to look back on, accomplishments and goal mileposts and all that. So that's what I look for.
Yeah. I hope this is an accurate picture, but I grabbed a picture from the web. Look at this handsome fella here holding this guitar. So was that maybe number one right there that you're holding, or?
That would be at least two, or two or three. I got a much better restored version of that picture now, but yeah, it was, I made three for him, the one for the movie, which was functioning and everything, but it was kind of a prop in a way too. It was a part of the storyline, almost like a character in the movie. And, nobody expected the movie to be that big. It was kind of a B movie, in a lot of ways. There was only one real actor in it. It was the concert scenes are what elevated it from just being a little nothing, or just kind of a B movie. And so it got to be much bigger than anybody had ever thought. And so then there was going to be a concert tour to take advantage of that. And then he needed two more. And I remember thinking, oh, wow, I guess he likes it. He's actually going to play it live. Well, so I made two more. I made them at the same time, which made it a little easier, and made them for the summer. I got them done in the late summer of '84 as they were practicing for the tour,
No, yeah, that's pretty amazing. Just almost improvising your way through it, and it being your first guitar build, and it being like one of his favorite guitars in his entire arsenal. I know he could play any guitar he's ever wanted, and he had a huge collection, but it's just neat to see kind of the significance that this played for him over the years too. And
Yeah,
so
he played it off and on for a long time. Yeah. It was
Yeah.
even seen at although he didn't do it at the end, the advertisement for the Super Bowl performance. It was in the ads, but then in the last minute he played something else. But he played guitars in that shape. Somebody else made some later for a long time, about almost 15, 20 years off and on.
I gotta
Yeah.
step out for just a minute.
Oh, yeah. Sorry about that. Well, so we got so they were playing them live, and my guess is they were beating them up. So did you fix them up a lot, or did they take care of them? How did those guitars play out?
Yeah, they came back all the time with broken necks because at the end of the show, he always throws them to the guitar tech. I suppose it looks kind of cool, but sometimes they're not caught. Once the headstock hit the guy in the face and he dropped it, and so they all were damaged a lot. Did you ever see the one that was sold at auction, a blue one, about 2 years ago? It had all kinds of new stuff. It had a whole brand new headstock. Part of the horn was fixed, and even then it was broken when the guy paid, I think, $500,000 for it, so he couldn't play it. He bought a broken Prince guitar for $500,000. So
Yeah.
he was very, very hard on everything. To him, a guitar was a tool. I don't think he would ever sit down and polish one, or it had to look good and play good, but it was part of the big picture, of performing and making music and entertaining. It was like a tool to him.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, I mean he's a musician's musician. He can. It's just like any craftsman walking into a workshop and knowing how to use a screwdriver or a saw or a drill press or whatever. He could look at any instrument and just go. I always admired him for that. Gosh, yeah. So how did building the guitars change after he had passed? Was that something that had to pause for a little bit? Did you stop building for a little bit, or when Prince left us, I guess, were you able to continue on building those guitars?
Well, it was actually the opposite. I had made them occasionally over the years, but I mostly have done repairs. And then after he died, the demand it just went crazy. The day he died, I had 22 phone calls, one from the Smithsonian, the BBC, all kinds of fans. So it really picked up. I mean, there's nothing like dying to give your career a boost. Unfortunately.
Yeah.
And so it picked up a lot. I've been so busy ever since.
Yeah,
and they're not easy to make. There's a lot of carving. You know what a Fender Telecaster is, don't you?
I sure do. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a slab. It's a cutout flat board. I can probably make 20 of those by the time I do one of these with the carving and all. There's hardly a flat surface on it. They're not easy to do. And they're hard rock maple, which is it's a hard wood to carve. It's almost like a stone, almost.
Yeah.
And I find it rewarding. I don't know if I'd say fun, but it's satisfying work. And but I've been busy. Very,
Yeah.
very busy doing that.
It looks like every little detail in your work is just not overlooked. I mean, there's so many times that I've looked at guitars over the years inside this little control cavity for electronics, and it's not painted, or it has this real rough kind of texture, or just like this right here. I'm impressed, like that, for someone who knows guitars to see that. I mean, that looks like that took some work, and like your electronics are all so clean, and there's no excessive wires all over the place. Like it's all just so well done. I can tell that it's probably a lot of time. Do you have an idea of roughly how many hours it probably takes you to do a guitar?
I think it's about 100, you know. I don't know. I don't want to sound too proud of myself, but why not do your best in life? You can be proud of yourself. You can hold your head up, you know, you can look in the mirror and say, well, I'm not perfect, but I do my best. Then you got something to offer people too. If you keep trying to get better. I really enjoy the wiring too, especially with that lovely Cardis solder.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah, we featured our friends Josh and Angela Cardis a few weeks ago, and we talked about the solder a little bit. It's kind of one of those unsung hero type products. I don't know why I get so geeked out, and I love their solder so much. But I'm glad that after I told you about it, you reached out right away to let me know how good it was, and that was reaffirming of that.
Oh, yeah, the way it so flows and it's so shiny. But yeah, I want to make these guitars as good as they can be. When I'm working on something, I don't know if I'm the best guitar builder or repairman in the world, but nobody could try harder. I couldn't want any more. That's all I can think about is I just want this to, excuse me, to be as good as it can be. That's all I can think about. And I try and keep getting better too, you know. To me, that's the fun, you know, the excitement. Can I get better? Can I invent some tool, something, you know? I get very excited when that happens, and I just, yeah, I give it my best. I even spray a little Prince perfume in the case before I close it. I had a friend that made fun of me for doing that. And then I got a letter from one of the guys. He says, every time I open up the case to get out my guitar, I smell that. And I thought, well, there you go. I understand the fans. You know, some of these people that buy these don't even play. I had a woman that was 24 years old order one of these. She wasn't even alive and didn't play guitar either. She just wanted something this is the closest as you could get to having one of Prince's things, you know. I mean, because it's exactly the same. I go to every effort to make it just like it was. And I'm the same guy, you know, so that means a lot to some fans, you know.
Yeah, I think Ariel and I are going to have to get one to hang up right in the middle of our maybe our Vivid speakers one day.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Match. There you go.
Well, my lawyer ordered one, and instead of part of the payment for all my legal bills, he ordered a guitar. He's going to hang it up in his office.
Yeah. Well, and actually, you just made me think of a couple things. So, so over the years, I mean, with this, like this case is kind of new for you, right? Like you never really used to have cases or accessories too much in the early days to offer for the guitar, right?
Well, after Prince died, I wanted to up the ante a little bit, so I wanted a better case. I went through 3 different companies until I come to the ANS Encore is what they're called. And because I wanted everything to be nice. Look how nice the guitar fits in the velvet, the way they sew it. You know, and over the years, you know, I'll send them a little email. I'll say, well, it's really good, but this or that could be just a little better. And instead of getting mad one day, they said, you know, we appreciate that. You actually made us become better by all these little nudges you gave us, you know. I want everything about it to be good. You know, I got a perfect reproduction of the strap that is in the Raspberry Beret video. I had to get it from Australia and then have it custom dyed. I just, you know, I want to take it all the way. You know, this is I love doing this, and this is my claim to fame. And they got to be as good as they can be. You know, they don't go out the door if they're not just about perfect.
I like that mantra. Yeah.
Yeah, I love all the extra care you put into it, because I know every single Prince fan that just that admired him, you know, they're gonna appreciate all that extra little detail and effort that you put into. I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's something about Prince really, I think, touched a lot of people and made a huge influence on them, no matter male, female, old, young. I mean, he's musically, he can really speak to a lot of people. So, and I know Prince super fans are quite amazing. I'm sure you've made a few friends over the years in that regard too. Huh?
Oh, I got them all over the world. I have a friend in Japan, Koichi, every country in Europe, Australia. There's a young guy who lives in Cannes on the French Riviera. He's almost like a young Mediterranean prince. He's 20 years old. He makes recordings where he plays all the instruments himself, you know. And so every day I communicate with people from at least probably 3 or 4 countries. It's quite a blessing, you know. It's really fun, you know.
I absolutely love it. And so, and another thing too that you make that is kind of recent that I think you kind of created it is you have this really cool guitar hanger where it kind of floats off the wall too, don't you?
Yeah, I found a way to I don't have it where I can show you right now. It's basically 2 angle brackets that attach to the strap buttons. And you can do it with any kind of guitar. You can do it with a Telecaster, anything. So if you do it just right and paint it to match the wall, it really looks like the guitar is just floating, you know. And it can be instantly come right off to play it too. I don't know why everybody doesn't do that instead of hanging them straight off those guitar hangers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it works just like a charm.
So when somebody buys one of these guitars, it comes in the case, and do they get one of those hangers too, or if they ask for it, they can get one?
Yeah, if they ask, yeah, it comes with a strap. Most of the colored ones, when Prince had them, they came with a matching colored strap. And I found the woman that dyed all the ones for Prince. She's still doing it. So I have her do it, and then I have her sign a little purple tag with gold ink, the saying that she did Prince's one, you know. And then they get some picks, and I put them in a little velvet purple bag. And of course, you get a truss rod wrench and a few little things, case candy, as they call it, you know. And, you know, and then the case, that's an ATA flight case, you know, the kind that is made for air travel, but I still wrap it in cardboard and put it in a carton too, you know, so it gets there. It can go anywhere and arrive in perfect condition, you know.
So super cool, super cool. Well, I'll make sure to put some links in the description of the video so people can check your stuff out. I know you're mostly Facebook and a phone guy right now, but hopefully soon we'll be able to redirect some people to a website for you.
Yeah, I have one that's probably going to be designed by the guy that designed some of Prince's album covers. He's working getting concepts. Did you ever see that I think it was one of the very last ones. It's that cartoon-like picture of Prince with the 3-eyed glasses.
Mm-hmm.
His name is Martin Homent. He's very talented, and we're collaborating. He did my logo and all kinds of other things for me. Very talented guy.
That is awesome. I love all these little synchronicities that you have with your process. It's so cool. So,
but yeah, it's fun. Yeah, it's fun to meet all these people. You know, they're all so interesting. Especially, you know, half of them go to England, and I've met so many people there. I have a fantasy that someday I go and we rent a little convention hall and all get together, or maybe just a big pub, you know, and hang out. You know, I think I've sent 8 of them there so far. So Prince must have been I looked him up. He played in England a lot, you know. I guess that's why, you know.
Yeah, that's very cool, Dave. So I know we've been talking guitars and kind of like the pro world a little bit, but let's shift gears a little bit for a few minutes here and let's talk hi-fi. When did you start getting into hi-fi? Like the next level of audio, I would say, because I've spent most of my life around pro and musician equipment, and when I had my first hi-fi experience, it was pretty life-changing for me, at least.
Well, I had my little kitty phonograph, and my parents had consumer grade stuff, you know, like the big entertainment console, those big giant hulking things with a TV in the middle and speakers on either side. And they sounded kind of big, but they certainly weren't hi-fi. And then one day there was a store in town called Schmidt Music. It was a huge multi-floor department store. It wasn't just some little music store. They had pianos, organs, band instruments, sheet music, everything. And they had a hi-fi department in there. They had Empire turntables. I think they had KLH, AR. And I remember hearing a speaker there where the high end was extended, and it sounded, so much more hi-fi and real than anything I'd ever heard out of the Magnavox home entertainment center. And I remember telling my dad, well, listen, he didn't get it, he wasn't into music. And I thought, this is a different thing, And so that was the start of it. And then I bought the large Advents when they come out. In fact, I had 2 pair. And, I had some mid-fi stuff, But I just loved that stuff. I loved hooking it up, and positioning the speakers and getting the catalogs, although there weren't a lot of good ones. It was Allied Radio. That was not real high end, although they had Macintosh amps in them for some reason. And I would just read. I got Audio Magazine. What was the one that Julian Hirsch was in there? Was that Stereo? There was, there were several.
Stereo Review, maybe.
Stereo Review, yeah. Julian Hirsch, the guy that supposedly only measured stuff and never listened to it. That was what people said about him. But I would read all the magazines. I just loved reading the frequency response and how much distortion there was. And so I was not only listening to it, it was just enjoying the specs and just looking at them, like some of those big Marantz receivers, all gold, and the Macintosh with the big meters on them. I just loved looking at that stuff, just everything about it, And I had some Stax headphones. That was a big step up for me. The electrostatics, they were pretty, hearing that kind of massless sound, the accuracy of the revealing nature of them, and I just kept working my way up. I got Magna pans now, the 20.7s, I worked my way up that far anyway. So I got, worked, and I can still hear well because I started wearing earplugs when I was about 24. So I can actually hear and my ears don't ring. So it's still fun,
Yeah, that's awesome. I know a lot of our talks over the last year or so have been about speakers in general. How long have you been using Maggies now?
This is the second pair. I had the last ones are from about 20 years ago. And I don't know what they were called. They didn't have any bass at all. What were they? But I enjoyed the quickness of them, compared to a lot of cone speakers. That and electrostatics, they're both, the mass is so low. I was just listening to the other day to some, it was like the xylophones and little flute sounds or the bow scraping on the strings. And it's like there's no fogginess between me and the speakers, just the way they reproduce that stuff, And I use them with subs. I got 2 Rail G1 Mark IIs, so it's a big sound. It can reproduce orchestras. You got a big sound stage. So the Magpans, I haven't heard a lot of other stuff. I got the second ones, the 20.7s, just based on how much I liked the first ones, without really hearing much else. Somehow that their general quality seemed good enough to me where I just got them, I didn't really listen to anything else, I suppose maybe if I heard the $350,000 Wilsons, I would kind of think maybe I'm missing something right now, but I've never heard them, so There are some hi-fi stores in town, but I haven't been to them much, you know. Sorry.
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say it's probably a different sound. It's probably a different, just a different.
Oh, I bet very different, probably more dynamic. Yeah, in some ways. The Magnepans are not considered the most dynamic speaker, but with a lot of power and the subs, I don't know, not bad in that way, I don't think, you know, but I'm probably missing some of that, you know, but I sure like them, you know.
Yeah,
You know, as long as it
I don't think
allows
I've-
you to connect with the music and you're happy with that, then I wouldn't overthink
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It feels like there's more than just more fidelity. It feels like I can connect with the emotions of the musicians more, you know. And I would have to say I got a lot of expensive guitars and everything, but I never bought anything that I enjoy as much as my present system, you know. It just it's like an event. It's not like some little stereo you turn on for background music. I mean, you could do that with these, but it seems like a real event when I get it up to a realistic volume of an orchestra and all that. You know, it's pretty nice.
yeah. I'm good friends with Wendell too, and I think I was curious if like the home turf aspect had anything to do with that. And I know they're pretty close to you, being up in Minnesota, there up in White Bear. So was there any of that played into your decision, or was it just sonically that was it?
Yeah, I guess that don't do a lot for me. You know, getting something local. Although I did have a tour, I've been there. I met. It was so long ago. It was the original guy started was still there. What was his name? I think he worked for 3M and he developed them in the garage. You know, I got to see the first ones he made. They had like the 70s looking terrible grill cloth. It was like avocado and orange grill cloth, you know. And then his son gave me a tour. And at the end, they gave me a handful of that mylar that, you know, that's the diaphragm is to take home. It kind of looks like glorified saran wrap, you know. And I was kind of impressed by the fact of how much they make there. You know, there's some brands, from what I hear, is that they have their speakers made the spec by somebody else and they just put them in a box. I mean, not to say that they didn't design the speakers and the crossover and all that, but there isn't a lot there. Everything was unique, you know. And I saw them you know, making the, you know, the fiberboard, the frames and doing all this stuff. I thought, boy, this is really a very unique speaker. I was so amazed at how different it was than anything I'd ever seen, you know. And yeah, it was a quiet day, but yeah, it was fun.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
love
we
what
have several. Go ahead, sorry.
I was just gonna say I love what they do because they remind me a lot of kind of like us, where in the speaker world they really just kind of march to the beat of their own drum. They have something that works and they kind of focus on their strengths. And yeah, it's a really cool product to me. Jim Winey is the founder.
And they also they're considered to be kind of almost a bargain for what they are, you know. The 20.7s, they're 20 grand now, but in the world of speakers, that's high end. That's not a lot of money, you know. And you know, so someday I may get something else, but I'd have to hear them a lot. You know, there are some Wilsons in town I can hear. I think the ones that are 150 grand, they got them at a place. But you know, I'm real happy with it. You know, there could be a little ignorance is bliss in there too, because I've never heard a stereo as good as the one I've got. So I don't know what I'm missing, really. You know, I mean, although it's I would say anybody would say that's pretty good stuff. You know, so it's but I just enjoy it. You know, and you know, it's every night. And I have it actually in the same room as my setup bench. So not only can I sit down and listen, I can listen while they work, which isn't ideal, but I can at least, you know, have them on. unfortunately, I get kind of there's a bit of a bass buildup right my bench. What do you call it? Where the bass builds up and gets a little too woofy right there, but it's still fun, you know.
Yeah, you get some room modes in there.
Yeah, yeah. It's suppose I could build a bass trap into the bench.
Yeah.
But
Well, I think it's just cool to know that you know that the fact that they're built super close to you didn't necessarily play into your decision. It was just that they sounded good and
yeah.
they spoke to you and
You
brought
know,
you
what's
brought you to
funny?
that place.
Yeah, I was going to say what seems kind of odd, and I've heard other people talk about this. Is a lot of musicians, at least in the pop world and the rock world, they don't seem to be into the high end hi-fi that much. They don't seem to have that desire for that stuff. You know, maybe because they've never heard any. You know, when I play my system for people, a lot of them they say that I've never heard anything like that. You know, all the revealing that occurs when you have a good system of stuff that they've been hearing all their lives. You know, they go, "Oh, that's amazing." You know, I had some Focal headphones too, and those reveal like that too. You know, so but you know, I sometimes I wonder. You know, obviously there is a market. You guys are in business. I guess it's a worldwide market. Sometimes I wonder where all this stuff goes. There's so many brands. I don't have any friends that have a stereo. I got about 60 grand into mine, and people are astounded when I tell them that. And I tell them, well, it'd be easy to multiply that by 10 or 20 if I wanted to, you know. And they go, they can't believe it, you know. But I don't think I have any friends that are musicians. Brian Setzer has, you know who he is?
Mhm.
Yeah, he's one of my customers. He's got some stuff that's decent, but I guess it doesn't seem to me that the fact that you play music really tends to make you any more wanting to have real good hi-fi stuff, you know. Do you find that's true at all?
In my experience, what I've probably come across the most is just that, like, if you're playing music, you're in an environment where it's going to get loud, and it's really, in a lot of cases, uncontrollable loudness. And sometimes you're stuck in a small room with musicians, and you even have earplugs in, and you're just trying to play with each other. And so, like, the quality doesn't um, come into the importance, I guess, as much in a lot of those scenarios maybe. And then also from personal experience, until I had my hi-fi aha moment, which was arranged for me by a friend, Troy Manning, who worked for like Focal Name North America and one of their distributors, Audio Plus Services. Yes, thank you, Troy. He got me into he shuttled me by limo to go listen to a Focal Utopia system at some mansion dealer in Denver. And up until that point, I had known, you know, recording studio monitors and big main monitors recessed in the wall. And I've seen and heard some amazing systems in the studio and in the live world. But until I had that Utopia Focal experience with name amplifiers and you know, a curated list of high resolution files, I hadn't had enough of that perspective to even understand that that was a thing. So yeah, I know for me, having that experience was enough to like make me not look back.
I would think you would have to go out of your way to get that experience for a lot of people. You're not going to get that at Best Buy, you know. Uh, where are you ever going to hear that stuff if you don't have a friend that has it? It's just not going to happen. You may not even know it exists, you know.
Yeah, and I think that's where we really rely on a lot of our dealers still. You know, we like up in your area, we have Audio Perfection right now as kind of our main point of contact up in Minnesota, which yeah, you know, like having that dealer connection, I think, is invaluable to this kind of equipment, because you never truly know what it's going to be like until you get it home in your own environment. But being able to experience it before that can hopefully eliminate some of the variables before it arrives and make sure you know that's the right decision.
Sure.
But yeah, I value that dealer experience and being able to witness it firsthand. But I think that I know you've got some appointments to keep too. I don't have too much else. I think that I want to catch our fans up on. I think that we've done a great job, and I'd love to have you back maybe down the road after we've had some chance to do some gear swaps. I want you
Oh,
to
yeah.
borrow your ears a little bit for some things this year. So love to get
Well,
your
that'd be
opinion on
fun.
stuff and have you back.
Yeah. Well, it's been fun being on. I appreciate you asking me on, and I would say I've done a few of these. This one was probably the most relaxed and the most fun.
Good, good.
That's what we shoot for. That's what we shoot for. But yeah, I again, you just have such a cool story, and it's worth retelling over and over and exposing a lot of our hi-fi clients to, because I know there's again plenty of people in the guitar world that kind of are familiar enough with some of your history and your story. But yeah, for any of our fans that want to contact Dave, I'll put his information in the description below. And if you want to reach out about your own cloud guitar or talk Prince, he's the man. So thank you so much, Dave. We really, really appreciate you and hope to see a lot more guitars getting pumped out this year.
Oh yes, I will do that. Well, thanks. Thanks for you guys. Have a good day.
Yeah, thanks,
All
Dave.
right. Thank you, Dave.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Cheers.
I just have to say thanks again to our guest Dave Rusan of Rusan Guitarworks for joining us today. What a special story Dave has to share from a music history standpoint to a fan's perspective, but I could listen to Dave talk about life and the creative process all day. He is a true artisan. If you want your own Rusan original cloud guitar hanging on the wall, check out the description below and reach out to Dave. And if you want to see some more great content from us at Ayre Acoustics and have another pint with a great guest, leave us a like and a subscribe and drop a comment on what you want to hear about and who you want to see, and we'll make that happen. But until next time, stay thirsty, enjoy the music, and we'll see you then.